Yo vine por eso, por tener un futuro, ya dejar todo el sufrimiento que hemos pasado.
Hoy se tiene previsto otra caravana que llegue a la frontera de Guatemala con México.
Incredible documentary. You guys were right in the middle of a historical moment. You know, the access and what you're covering and the human stories that you were able to capture were incredible. Tell me a little bit about how this documentary came together.
So we had an idea from the very beginning of trying to understand the push factors and present how Mexico had got to where it is now by looking at its history. So we knew migration was one of these issues. Like, we wanted to examine push factors for migration. So we spent a lot of time researching different families, but we were actually in Actial, and we met with La Mesa from Actial about, you know, because Actial is a very important moment in modern Mexican history as well, because there was a massacre where 38 people were murdered. And so we were there, and then we immediately had to leave and drive from San Cristobal in the mountains of Chiapas to the coast. And, you know, you can't just drive straight there because it's Mexico. So you had to go all the way around. You know, it was one of those things that, you know, it was our third day in production, and we promised Nat Geo that we'd never travel at night. And, well, we traveled at night.
Solo porque seamos migrantes no quiere decir que somos delincuentes.
Pues sí sé que es delito, pero ¿cómo lo vamos a sacar el dinero para comprar la ropa de los chamacos?
Talk to me about the kind of people that we see in this documentary. Can you describe some of the people that you're focusing on?
On the caravan, we actually followed 5 families, but in the edit, it came down to 2. And so the first was Ludi, and Ludi was 17 at the time. She was with a group of friends from San Pedro Sula, from her neighborhood. And Ludi left San Pedro Sula because she was being harassed by a guy from the Maras who has actually raped her. And so we followed Ludi all the way through. We gave her a camera, and a lot of the footage that you see in the film is footage that Ludi and her boyfriend shot together. And then we also focused on a family, an extended family, Sauro and Chaurol, and their children. And we actually had been talking to Sauro and Chaurol beforehand because they were in an albergue in Tapachula. And so they'd already crossed into Mexico when we picked them up. And we even followed them as they cross into the United States to claim asylum protection.
The problem is ultimately political. What agencies are responsible for fighting crime? And the answer is no one.
This is a country where 98% of crimes are never solved.
Defenderse ellos mismos a que esté aquí la policía.
How does the drug trade connect with the caravan, or were there 2 separate stories that you were basically putting into, you know, the umbrella of what's going on in Mexico?
I don't think the drug trade was actually using the caravan per se, but it's impossible to separate the politics of narcotics and American foreign policy from the push factors that are pushing migrants north. Nothing's monocausal in this world. So if you were to examine the issue of migration and leave the politics of narcotics alone, you'd be missing, you know, half the story. Just to look at Mexico again would be naive. All the borders that are in Central America are colonial designations, and even the southern border. Remember, the southern border is a modern border. The Mexican-American War moved the border to where it is now. But it never was like that. And we touch on the legacy of the Mexican-American War, but it's very raw in Mexico. It's the war that America never remembered and Mexico never forgot.
No hay mucho de qué sobrevivir, de qué mantenerse. Es lo que hay y es lo que tienes que hacer.
Cuando tus amigos son asesinados, aparecen, la gente empieza a organizarse con los medios que tiene.
Y ojalá espero que cambie mi vida.
They should turn back now.
¿Tienes miedo? Sí. Ya no va a quitar.
How do you want perceptions in the United States to change about the situation across the border?
I'd like people to, you know, there's been such polarizing rhetoric from the government that I'd like people to watch the film and understand what the circumstances are for people in Central America and Mexico and what's driving them north. But ultimately, the root cause of migration is the corruption of the Central American governments, whether it's Bukele, whether it's Hernandez, whether it's Morales in Guatemala. These guys are all the lapdogs of Americans and trained in La Escuela de America. Like the fear of communism transcends the fear of corruption. And they continue to support these regimes that siphon off all the aid that is going. It's systematic. It's not, people in Central America don't even think of it as corruption. They think of it as the way of life. You're going to get pulled over by the police. You pay your 100 lempiras to avoid the ticket. It's just things are done differently. And until there's some type of rule of law and there's some type of accountability by the paragons of the countries, then there's not going to be much change.
Nick, thank you so much, and congrats on an amazing project, Blood on the Wall on Nat Geo. I'm going to watch it again. Thank you very much.
So much.